Well, you know, lately, we used to, it was years ago, you could shake your lungs. Oh, I can't talk to you.
I think you're only recording if you're.
Oh, okay, is that right?
It's amazing how well the audio picks up though on this.
Oh.
Okay.
Very fun.
For those that don't, they call it.
Well, years ago, we could do a lot of shade fishing, seines,
Uh-huh.
and I remember one time, my dad went and like rock fish were pulling, if he caught a rock fish, it was as tall as I was, which wasn't overly tall. At the time, it was Johnson, gee, it was probably 50, 60 pounds.
It's no difference. This is learning always all.
Yeah, huge.
All right. Y'all good for raising me up? Yeah. Let's go. The Wetlands Board for King William County is called to order. The first order of business will be the roll call. Mr. Eder. Gibson.
Okay. Mr. Brian Johnson?
Present.
Mrs. Sheila Barnett?
Present.
Mr. William Barber?
Present.
Mr. Ryan Fletcher? Mr. Charles Shaver?
Here. Okay, thank you. You've all received, whoa. We have an alternate member, Ms. Gibson, and that's Charles Pearson.
Pearson?
I'm not sure how that stands in the program, because it was something that Board of Supervisors did, that put in an alternate member.
Okay.
Now, that being said, that works out to our favor tonight. Mr. Fletcher being absent, that gives us a full 5 members.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Good. You've all received a copy of the agenda in the mail or delivered to your home. Is there a motion to accept that as our agenda, or do we need to do any modifications?
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept, second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion to probably second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's our program. The public hearing is closed right at the moment for our thing. You've got your minutes from our December 5th, 2018 meeting. It was a year ago. And you've reviewed those. Are there any changes, additions?
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, can I?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion on my part, that it needs to be modified in there, that we had it and the board members absent, and that was Brian Johnson. Okay? All right? You okay? Now, modified, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we come to, since this is our first meeting for 2019, we need to have our organization as far as the chairperson and vice chairperson. That'd be okay with you?
I make a motion that Mr. Charles Shaver can continue as chairman.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I will accept. Now, we're not sure who was the vice chair, but all of you are candidates. I don't think I've missed a meeting even for the zoning board or wetlands board ever in my life.
I'll make a motion that Charles Pearsall be considered as vice chair.
Okay? Mr. Pearsall, will you accept that?
Yeah.
Okay, any other?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Ms. Barber?
Good.
Okay? Since there's no one else, Mr. Pearsall will accept. All in favor of Mr. Pearsall, say aye.
Aye.
All, okay, that's all, I heard all. So we have our chairperson, myself, and Mr. Pearsall. The election, this is something new for you, but the election of our secretary. Now, is that you, Mrs. Gibson, or is that Mr. Eder?
It'll remain, if y'all want to appoint me, it'll still remain secretary, but Ms. Gibson will be helping.
Okay? We'll make sure when your name, we don't spell it the way the phone, the telephone, the newspaper spells your name wrong.
Yeah.
They have got it.
Yes, close.
I'm moving right along. Okay, listening to that, you heard that Mr. Etter has been our secretary, and he's doing. Any changes for that? Motion?
Motion that he stays the secretary.
Okay, motion been made.
I'll second.
Ron Etter, motion made and properly seconded, that Ron Etter stay as secretary for this. Now, I intended to ask this question before the meeting, but I want to ask it right now. All of these persons have paid a lot of money for these exceptions that they need, or wetlands permits, and they all need due process. Do we handle each one separately?
I'm going to present on my presentation, they will be handled separately, but I think we can do them continuously as one thing.
In other words, we can't say carte blanche, it's one case of five.
No, each one we're going to have to issue a permit for, so each one needs to be considered on its own merit.
On its own merits, okay. All right. I don't want to shortchange persons who paid good monies to, have 5 separate cases. All right? Thank you very much. Okay. I guess, so it's read into since it's read into the minutes, you want me to read each one separately? And
I can present it for you, or you can read them yourself.
which would you prefer?
I'd like, let's say Mr. Etter present.
Okay, go for it.
One thing that I would like to bring up, okay, we're good. What you have before you are 5 wetland permit applications, joint permit applications. The first one, 19-1769, the applicant is Ms. Andrea Harlow. The applicant is requesting approval to install approximately 275 feet of riprap abutment and an open pile private pier and open-sided 20 by 30 boat shed with a lift on the Pamunkey River. The subject property is located off State Route 630, Smith Ferry Road in the Sweet Hall District. Property shown is tax map parcel 62-3. On the King William County tax maps. The property is located in the agricultural conservation zone, 2nd voting district. Case JPA number 19-1770. The applicant is Tanya Johnson. She is also requesting approval to install approximately 275 feet of riprap abutment on the Pamunkey River. The subject property is located off of Route 630 Smith Ferry Road, Sweet Hall District. The property shown is tax map parcel 60-2-4 in the King William County tax maps. Case JPA 19-1771, the applicant is Ms. K.W. Johnson. The applicant is requesting approval to install approximately 275 feet of riprap abutment and open pile private pier and 20 by 30 open-sided boat shed on the Pamunkey River. Subject property is also located off State Route 630 Smith Ferry Road in Sweet Hall District. Property shown as tax map 60-2-2 in the King William County tax map. Case JPA 19-1772, Mr. Bruce Johnson. The applicant is requesting approval to install 275 feet of riprap abutment, open pile private pier with a 20 by 20 open-sided boat shed and lift on the Pamunkey River. This property is located on State Route 630 in the Sweet Hall District and Zone of Agricultural Conservation. Case JP 19-1773, the applicant is the Johnson Family LLC. The applicant is requesting approval to install approximately 561 feet of riprap abutment, a 14 by 80 foot boat ramp with tending piers and open pile private pier with a 16 by 35 foot open-sided boat shed and lift on the Pamunkey River. The subject property is located off of State Route 630 in the Sweet Hall District, shown on tax map parcel 62-27 on the King William County project is for the continuous riprap revetment along the shoreline to maintain it and protect it from further erosion. One of the properties is also proposing to install a private boat ramp. The riprap revetment and boat ramp require public hearings and approval of the Wetlands Board. And some of the properties are proposing to install open-sided boat sheds, lifts, and open pile private piers, which do not require a public hearing or approval from the Wetlands Board.
All right,
And I've,
Mr. Aaron?
yes, sir.
Okay, this might be the right time to interject. Mr. Johnson might like to, Mr. Bruce Johnson might like to make a statement.
Well, I'm Brian Johnson, but I just said, I'll be abstaining from any voting, is that what you're wanting me to
And
do?
discussion.
And discussion, okay. Since you to do that, I'm related to all of these parties.
Okay? Wanted that to be read into the record.
This is a map showing you the parcels that are under consideration for you tonight. The LLC, the Johnson Family LLC is a large parcel, and you can see how the others are adjacent, just work there down the line. Just second district, down on the monkey. This is a picture of, this is where the boat ramp's going to go on the parent parcel. Just giving y'all some views of what the current conditions are along the bank. Just give some idea what we're looking at here. Some of the steep slopes. And I took some, I'm going to give you all a kind of feel for, the location. You can see West Point there, and then some of the surrounding features.
The one that you showed, is that our drop, where the drop inlet? The first one you showed?
Where the boat ramp's going to be?
Come back.
Of that?
I think you showed the
One of
drop
the first
inlet.
ones you showed that he's asking about.
We'll back up a little.
It'll get there, it's just not quick.
That drop inlet goes out to that big pipe down on the water?
I don't remember for sure, I can't tell you. But I can ask somebody who might know.
That's on what I believe on Kay's property.
If I can, is it okay to
Yes.
speak? The
Just state your name and address.
Bruce Johnson, 29,900 King William Road, West Point, Virginia. The very first slide, I believe you showed, if you could go all the way back.
I'm going the wrong way now.
Anyway, the first slide he showed where the proposed boat ramp is going to be, it is a inlet pipe in the yard. See that hole?
Yes.
That is a graded inlet pipe, and on the opposite side of those white stakes, if you can see them, is where the outlet pipe.
That's,
Huh.
would that be called Kay's property?
That is called Johnson Family LLC. That's on the bigger parcel.
Excuse me.
Now, on Kay's parcel is where you did see a big pipe,
Okay.
but that was not where the proposed boat ramp would be. You're correct.
Thank you for doing that. I have not opened the public hearing, but I thank you for helping Ron with that decision. Okay?
Well, thank you for letting me help clarify.
The county did mail notices to the adjacent property owners, to the applicants, to the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, State Water Control Board, VDOT, Game and Inland Fisheries, Commissioner of Revenue, and the Board of Supervisors for King William County. And the legal ads were run in the title order review on December 4th and December 11th for the public hearing. After staff review, staff recommends approval with the following conditions of all 5 permits. must meet all requirements of state and local agencies, and all work must be completed within 2 years of the approval date, or the permit becomes invalid and the applicants will need to reapply.
All right, any questions of Mr. Etter before I call Randy Owen? All right, we still have not opened the public hearing. Mr. Owen?
Yes, sir.
Randy Owen, Virginia Marine Resources.
Yes, Randy, on the record, MRC. I'm here to perhaps answer any legal questions you have or technical questions of the law, but take no position on the project.
Questions of Mr. Owen? Got one.
Sure.
It's a small amount, well, in my book, it's a small amount. The vegetative woodlands looks like it's about 95 square feet total. You have a problem with that?
I cannot answer that question. I cannot speak to the merits of the project or prejudice your decision. I can tell you that I did, with the agent, walk the entire site. The entire site was staked out, and we did help the agent arrive at that number, so I'm confident in the number.
Yes,
I
sir.
will not speak to whether that's okay or not okay.
Thanks for the load.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good?
If it needed to be done, is there something where you have to buy something to do that, or is it?
I can't answer that question. I'm of the opinion that the project is currently on the drawings and before you tonight. The alignment was set by the agent and property owners, with me and Ron and myself on the property, just making sure that we were confident in how the site was being assessed for impacts. I'm of the opinion that as proposed, the toe of the structure that impacts the 95 square feet, and that's collectively for the 5 lots, does not constitute a fill. It constitutes an impact, and under the current policy that MRC follows, an impact does not require compensation, however fill would. So I'm of the opinion that it would not require compensation.
No? Gentlemen, you heard that? Ma'am? Okay. Good, thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I
Sir.
know that was not a decision, but gave us your expertise.
And I would say that it is at the discretion of the board. That is the policy that MRC holds.
Thank you, sir. Okay? Any further questions before I call for the opening of the public hearing?
No.
Sounds wild. The public hearing is open. That would be for anyone there that would like to speak in favor of these 5 cases.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. I'm Carla Havens, Mid-Atlantic Resource Consulting, 1095 Cherry Row Lane, Plainfield, 23156. I am the agent for all 5 properties, and as Randy said, we met out in July of this summer, and we figured it would be best if we got all parties involved so that we all were singing from the same sheet of paper. And Ron, if you wouldn't mind going to the aerial. Thank you. We're starting down at the bottom on the Johnson family property, and then going approximately 1,660 feet downstream to the end of the yellow corner there. I don't know if you can read tax map 60-2-4. And the shoreline situation changes as you go from upstream downstream. Upstream on Grandma's property, the family property, is where that drop is, that hole that, as Bruce Johnson pointed out. And it leads to a drain pipe that direct discharges into the river, and it's a concrete pipe. And it's pretty beaten up. And I believe the history on that is there was a huge rain event, and that section of the property blew out. So they put in the general slope, the pipe, and now it's a controlled situation during rain events. So that area has already been disturbed and treated, and has proven to be a satisfactory solution to heavy rain events. Has anybody been to the site? Great, okay, very good. I commend you. I work over 15 counties, and not all board members go to sites, and I really appreciate that you went to the site, that you took the time to do it. So thank you. The vegetated impacts are primarily along the family parcel, which is the longer stretch of shoreline that you see there. As you move downstream, you start to pick up the trees, and the trees have been undercut severely, 4 to 5 feet. It's gouged, it's scoured out underneath the trees, 4 to 5 feet. And there's that clay marl out there. And then the roots overhanging the trees are pretty much the only thing keeping the trees on the bank. And there's no wetland vegetation growing there because it's all shaded out from the trees, and plus it's down to the clay now, so nothing can grow and get a fix on that clay. One thing I want to point out is, unfortunately, we can't see further upstream, which is at the bottom of that aerial photo, but the river is gently closing. There's a constriction there. So you're forcing a lot of water into a constriction, and it doesn't go sideways, it goes down. So that part of the river gets deeper because you've got that same volume of water moving with the tide every day that's got to get through there. So that section, because it's constricted, is deeper, slightly deeper than what's downstream and upstream of it. And that comes into play with the consideration of shoreline strategies that we considered on this parcel. Again, July 17th, 2019, Randy Allen, Ron Etter, Jason, who is Jason Johnson, who is Andrea's brother.
My cousin.
Your cousin, okay. And his son, a VIMS representative, who I don't remember her name, Randy.
Kristen Michon.
Kristen Michon.
Bashan.
Kristen Bashan from VIMS. My son, Kate Havens, and myself were out there. So we had 8 people out there staking and evaluating. I'm glad you're familiar with the project site. I hope you're familiar with the river. I think also contributing to the erosion problem is that it's in agriculture, and we've had some crazy rain events, and the upland is eroding as well as the bank and the wetlands. The tide range out here is roughly 3 feet, and I've been told that the channel runs bank to bank because it is a constriction. You don't have the flats on either side like you would further downstream and upstream. As a result, there is a steep drop. When I was staking the boat ramp, there was a definite drop at the channelward edge of the boat ramp. Unfortunately, there's no detailed bathymetric information available. I even spoke with Keith Goodwin with the Corps of Engineers. He's the Corps rep who's handling this project. And I spoke with him asking if there were any sorts of depth sounding work that's been done up in this area, and there hasn't. It's not a shipping channel that in Portsmouth or Norfolk where they would have that information readily available. Considerations that were taken to address the shoreline erosion. Of course, a vertical structure like a bulkhead or a bulkhead or a vinyl wall is just simply out of question. So we considered a marsh toe, and with the tide range like a marsh toe is a mound of stone that sticks above high water. At high tide, a little bit of it sticks out, and then it's all exposed at low tide. To put a toe around the marsh that's there, it could be done, but it would have to be such a high structure, it kind of defeats the purpose of being a toe. To do a breakwater would be an offshore structure that then you would backfill the land side of the mound or the breakwater to the bank, the embankment. The quantity of stone and sand that you would need is would just be ridiculous. Rough estimates is a base width of a breakwater being about 14 to 16, possibly even 20 feet. Because the deeper you go, the more stone you need to bring the structure up. And that's with a 2-to-1 slope on the riverside and a 1-to-1 slope on the backside. And normally you do a 1.5 to 1 on the backside. So I kind of steepened it up a little bit. But it's just a huge quantity of stone, and the footprint would be enormous. And I don't remember if I mentioned, it's roughly 1,700 linear feet point to point that we're trying to address here. The revetment that we staked with the PVC pipes, we held really close to the bank to try to minimize not just the vegetated wetland impacts, but the intertidal non-vegetated wetland impacts as well. Came up with 95 square feet. Most of that is on the largest reach that you see there, which is the Johnson family property. And then I believe Kay's parcel has about 5 square feet on it, and the rest is all intertidal mud flat. If we're going to do a revetment, we need to put a toe in. So that's basically the wetland impact that's before you, is the toe of the structure. The revetment itself would be laid up against the bank, and the top portion of the embankment would be graded back. Without getting into too much of the gory details, because this project will require a permit from the Corps of Engineers, and a known Indian cultural site is in the vicinity, the Virginia Historic Resources and the tribes have been notified. They're not in support of this project at this time.
You're not one?
They are not in support of this project, of any of these 5 projects at this time. And our hope is to work with them to get it to an approvable state where they do support all 5 projects. Just so you know, it's my understanding that if we move the revetment landward, so no wetlands would be impacted, but the embankment, the upland, would be greater impacted. The tribes and VDH would not be involved, because it's the impacts to the wetlands that is kicking the tribes and the VDH into this. So if we move the structure back so it doesn't impact wetlands, they have no comment. Now, to do that is going to take a lot of grading. It's not out of the question. I don't really think it's a reasonable thing to do. You've been out there, you see what the bank looks like. I think an encroachment for the toe and putting stone on the bank is quite reasonable. And that's what we're here to ask for this evening. Another option is to do nothing. Just let it continue to erode. Any potential artifacts would erode with it. At least with the revetment, you're securing what's there now. Mr. Johnson, Bruce Johnson is here to answer any historical questions that you might have about the property. And Andrea Harlow is here as well. She is the owner of parcel lot 3.
I'm just curious, I see obviously the 5 parcels outlined in yellow, but it looks like there are an additional 3 parcels, and before you hit more trees. So are those owned by individuals? I'm wondering why those individuals aren't part of the project as well.
It's my understanding that when the properties were subdivided by the grandmother, they were given to family members, and those family members have chosen at this time not to do any shoreline defense.
I see.
Bouncing on something you said a few moments ago, those properties are not impacted as much of the squeezing And now it's at the river, is that correct?
I think that has something to do with it, yes.
They're not seeing as much problem.
They've got the, they don't have a whole lot of beach there. They've got, that's the end where the trees are overhanging and it's scoured out underneath. I did not walk down there, so I cannot tell you specifically what those parts, what that shoreline looks like, but I presume it looks a lot like 60-2-4, which is Tanya Johnson's lot 4.
Excuse me, board, out of turn, I asked a question. I'll wait till she's finished and then I'll ask you. Can we go ahead with questions?
Certainly.
Okay. Gentlemen, lady, questions? Carl? Mr. Pearson?
Would you go back over the Indian thing again, because we're open for public hearing for against and for opposing. There's nobody in this audience that's here for the Indians, am I correct?
That's my understanding, and they were not interested, it's my understanding they were not interested in meeting on site. Ms. Harlow and I both really wanted to meet on site with Keith Goodwin with the Corps, any tribal people, and any people from VDH, the Virginia Department of Historical Resources. And
What's the proximity to this parcel that they're speaking of?
that has not
Basin
been,
or-
that has not been made, that information has not been made available to me. And
It's in the Cahoe Green, but
I mean,
that's,
yeah, but it's all
that,
right.
yes. That's why I was asking the question, it's open for public hearing, for and against. Have the Indians give you anything in writing?
I have received nothing from any tribal information, and perhaps Ms. Harlow has, but
Y'all in there, have y'all had anything from them?
No, sir, we have not received anything.
Bruce?
No, we have not.
I just wanted to clarify. I
Thank
mean,
you.
we spoke against it, but nobody's here to speak, against it.
thank you.
When you say revetments, does that have anything to do with the timber piles? Revetments, the bigger revetments going to require the bigger timber piles, is that correct? I see timber piles.
The piles are for the proposed piers,
Okay.
and the piers meet exemption A, so
Okay.
you don't need to make a decision on that.
No, you don't.
We didn't discuss the boat ramp in detail.
It's not under this board. That's correct?
That is correct.
No, the boat ramp is,
Oh, the boat ramp, I thought you were still.
The boat ramp is?
yes, sir.
Help me with the property, which one?
The boat ramp is proposed in the same alignment where the drain pipe blew out years ago,
Okay.
right there. And that is the landward end of the proposed boat ramp. And so it'll cut into that embankment and have side slopes that tie into the existing grade where it goes out. There you go.
Is that
Yeah,
above,
that's
that's
view.
upriver from the house?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's right over top of that drain. So
That's
the
why the reason
idea
that-
is it's already been
Right there.
disturbed. The
Yes.
soil has already been disturbed.
I think that's the drain right there.
It sure looks like it.
I think that's, if memories, when I was trying to take the pictures, I wanted to give y'all some representation. When we were talking about, I'm pretty sure that's where that drain is.
That's probably the reason why there's 90 square feet in that one area, with that one.
Yeah, there's just a couple little marsh type beach areas.
Makes sense.
Like pockets. Yeah.
And they weren't, that wasn't a continuous 95 feet.
It's 5 on another one and then 5 now.
Yeah, I'll let,
Yeah, the family parcel has 90 square feet and Kay's has 5 square feet. And also, this is a good photograph to relay information regarding water depths. Ms. Harlow says that that float that's out there right now, in the summertime when they jump off at high tide, it's over your head.
That's it.
Yeah, on the riverside, if you jump off there, it's over your head. And I would guesstimate that's 25 feet from shore, from the embankment to the channel where it is,
Maybe, yeah.
if even that. Yeah, it drops off.
And only the,
Channels on that side of the river.
Second.
Channels on that side of the river, but,
Right, and that's why you've got the erosion on that side. Yeah, there's marsh on the other
yeah, you
side.
can look at the curvature and tell which side channel is.
You're gonna want to see this property from your home, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
Also.
So the boat ramp doesn't go out very far. Perhaps you saw the stakes out in the water.
Okay.
And the existing ramp that Ron, if you could go back, right there. That was an access ramp that was put in, and that area, if the proposed boat ramp is approved, this area will be restored. So all the stone and material that was brought in along the inner perimeter will be removed. And where the revetment's is not constructed, potential for vegetation to go back in there.
Any more questions? Ms. Havens? I'm gonna switch to you, Randy. What does no SJB stand? It was on all of these. What's no SJB?
No SJV. Yes, there we go, thank you. So,
I got it per your witness.
I'm still on amoxicillin, so I'm a little slowly catch up here. Since the joint venture is a federal endangered plant, a wetland plant, and it is known in the Pamunkey Reaches. Carl and I basically walked the site. I know what it looked like. I am not qualified, but we did not see one. I don't know where you stand with the Corps of Engineers, but it is my understanding that it was done on site.
No SJB.
No SJV.
And it has to do with particular growth of some.
It is a tidal wetlands plant that is federally endangered and recognized on the list, and it grows in tidal freshwater reaches a long time, eroding edges of sandy shoreline, whatnot.
Yeah, I missed it earlier. I had even had a flag on that particular.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, we're still in the public part of it. Do you have anyone else from the Johnson family that'd like to speak?
Introduce yourself to your
hi, I'm Andrea Harlow. My address is 7360 Patriots Landing Place, Clinton, Virginia 23141. I'm one of the applicants. My lot is number 3, the second from the end. I'm just here to answer any questions if you have them. One piece of additional information I will offer is regarding that floating pier. At high tide, Carla mentioned that on the river side, at high tide, it's over your head. Also at high tide, on the land side, it's about up to my armpits deep. It's a pretty significant water depth change at high tide there, which was one of the reasons that we think that I don't know what you call it, putting the rocks out in the river would be a pretty significant undertaking because of the depth of the water.
It's all tile.
There's a very steep drop off under that pier.
Any questions? Okay, anyone else to speak? Thank you, ma'am.
Others. Gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity. Bruce Johnson, 29900 King William Road, West Point, Virginia. This is our home place. Grew up since I was a baby, so I've been around a while. I won't tell you how old I am, but it's been a long time. Just to give you some perspective of the tide and the speed that moves along the shore, when my dad was a child, he grew up in this neck of the woods as well, right next to the bank here. And his younger sister drowned right outside of that, where that float is. And what happens, she was referring to the water volume and the constriction and what have you. But above the river here, you can't really see it unless you go back to one of the other slides, but it's a curve. This is right at the curve comes right around, and that water narrows up, and it's whirlpools, and there's a lot of current right there. And it tends to, that current tends to erode or, you know, very, very much movement. So, and that whole stretch is fairly deep. My dad, when I was growing up, he said, he always had told me, and whether it's true, I don't know for sure, but he said that was probably one of the deepest places in the Pamunkey River. It was right in front of there where we grew up. So, and another thing is just a anecdote, I guess, but down near the duck blind, which is on lot 3, I believe is on Andrea's lot, on occasion we've tried to duck hunt out of that, and it's next to impossible to keep your decoys out in front of the blind because the tide is so fast. So, and that just gives you an indication that the depth and the current is very, very strong on this side of the river. So it is definitely an erosion problem. And as far as the part of the bank that you don't see any trees on, years and years ago there were trees there, but my dad, you know, he had cleaned up hedgerows and things, but was having difficulty with those root balls and all going in the river, and he took it upon himself and graded that bank and pulled it back, and actually on the top side it sloped towards the field so water doesn't go rushing down. But in my lifetime, to just point out another little anecdote, the area in the yard where we were proposing the boat ramp to be, I can't remember which storm it was, but in 2 particular instances, it was an area there, I would say at least the size of this room and the depth of this room that had blown out and washed out. And that's when we had to haul in dirt and repair and put in the drop structure and so forth. And also on Kay's lot, where the current boat ramp is, we had to do the same thing. It was a similar event. And that's happened twice in my lifetime, the erosion blowing out. So as far as artifacts or original earth, that whole area has been, particularly where these 2 drop structures are, where the pipes are, have been completely filled throughout the years. And of course, as I pointed out, the bank itself has been graded in years past, many, many years ago, when I was a child. But this is a couple of comments I thought it might address some of the ideas about, you know, the current and how severe the erosion is. And the biggest problem we have on erosion, I would say, is the northeaster storms. It took that bank and took tons and tons and tons of dirt and took it into the river. That bank is, I would say it's 25 feet back from when I was growing up. And that's mainly because of storms as much as anything. So definitely an issue. I don't know what the best thing to do. Anything we do is going to be expensive, whatever you proceed to do. So it's not a project that you look forward to doing, but we're hoping to save some of this dirt for future generations.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any questions? All right. Are you ready for me to close the public hearing? So done. All right. I know that this was advertised as required by law. The Indian tribes were contacted. We chose not to be here. There's also a choice that Mrs. Haven said, do nothing. But something is better than doing nothing. What challenges do you have in your mind, Mr. Pearsall? You live right there? You can see it?
Everything's improvement. Only question I have, the other thing that I've been involved with is driving pilot. I know in the last situation here, the Indians talked about not driving pilot was spawning season. That was one big complaint I heard from the Indians.
That, one of the pictures that we saw,
Uh-huh.
did that show one of the towers that we discussed in our last meeting
Yeah,
here? The power company?
Power company, Tower Bruce, that's up the river, down the river from there.
Line 241.
I didn't hear your comment, Charlie, the initial part of it, mate.
We had a case back
Right
there.
there in front of,
Tree watch.
Tree Watch,
Right.
where they put they
Palms.
moved that tower back and put it in the marsh and redoing it.
Right.
And when that was brought up last year, Mr. Adams from Upper Mountain asked for not to be power being going in during spawning season, so it would not mess up the spawning. So I was just one of the comments, I wanted to see what y'all had to say.
If I could, the Corps of Engineers will place, through notification to NOAA, will place time of year restrictions on piles being driven. And they usually require that it be a vibratory hammer. So that should be addressed.
Okay.
Whether it's eagles or anadromous fish or whatever, if there's a resource that is sensitive to the vibrations, the Corps of Engineers puts
I had no
time of year
idea.
restriction.
That was just something that was done. I don't have a problem with it because I stay on the water half my life. And at least you got something here you can work with. My river ranks 90 feet up in the air. And this will protect it and keep it from erosion. I don't have a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering. Ms. Bynum?
Yes.
I'm sorry, maybe I looked that way. All three of these gentlemen are probably closer to knowing the Indian tribe persons in this county than you.
Yes.
It's not anything against you. Do you have any reservations as far as moving on with this?
No, sir, I do not.
Do we have to vote on each one separately, or can we have a motion to accept them all since it's all one big project being done at one time?
We'll ask whether there's a quality of that. Did you hear his question?
Yes. I believe you can vote on all five sides.
At one time.
We need a motion on that?
Let's finish some discussion.
Okay.
And look at Mr. Barber again. Mr. Barber,
I'm good.
with the Indian not being here?
No, I mean, yeah, but if they had that much of a problem with it, then they would have been here, but, these folks are trying to protect the river shore, and that's kind of our goal, so, if they're gonna go through all this to do it, then they definitely have my vote, so.
Word I heard from someone is that if they leave it alone, those artifacts will go on into the river. If they do this, at least no more artifacts will be destroyed. Is that the way I understand it?
I think that's the way she spoke.
That's what she said.
Mm-hmm.
But once you stabilize it, ain't go washing it.
Will not wash anymore. Maybe you keep your fingers crossed for that one.
Well, you do the best you can, but Mother Nature still will do what Mother Nature wants to do.
Sir, yes,
Well, it's also blown out a couple of times, that's also.
3 times in his life.
Bruce's lifetime.
Mhm. And we'll get my notes here one more time. Public hearing is still closed. I'll make sure all the little flags that I had, and little notes that I had, that it's been discussed. Okay, now the floor is open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve all 5 at one time.
I'll second that.
Okay? You've heard 2 years.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay?
Can they finish the project?
Can it be
If they don't, they come back.
If, question, if, could we, if we need additional time, may we write a letter to the board before the permit expires requesting another year extension?
That's the way you like it, isn't that, Mr. Gunner? And there's no reapplication fee, is that correct?
Correct. We would honor an extension or consider an extension.
As long as the permit has not expired?
Correct.
Great, okay.
That's a
very good.
magic situation that needs to happen before that expires. Not in our venue, but in another venue on the opposite river, it's happened. Okay? All right, 2 years, it seems that I had something else. This, in addition to the 2 years. Okay, motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and properly second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Ms. Gibson?
Sorry. Mr. Brian Johnson?
Abstaining.
I'm sorry.
That's good. It's good that you're recording that.
Ms. Sheila Burnett?
I approve.
Mr. William Barber?
Approved.
Mr. Charles Shaver?
I approve.
Mr. Charles Pearson?
I approve.
Okay. You've heard that, the 4 members who are in session here approving this. This is passed. And in 10 days' time, after this, I believe that the permit can be secured from your office.
Yes, sir. We have to wait 10 days for further. But after 10 days, the permits will be signed and y'all can pick them up in my office.
I will do my best to do my duty, to be at his office somewhere close to that 10 days. Today's what, the 19th? Before the end, you need to have it signed before the end of the year?
Yes, sir. We can discuss that.
Okay.
Because even if you're not available, as we did for the last permit applications, secretary.
I think I came and signed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll do my best to do my duty to do that. All right? I have nothing else. I want to thank everyone for taking your time to come here. Randy, sick as you are, brother, good to see you. And your great pieces of wisdom was good to have. Thank everyone for your attendance. I don't know whether you people realize this or not, but everyone on this board is volunteer. We are not paid by the county.
We appreciate your time and effort. Thank you.
We enjoy what we get to do. Right? Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion been made by Mr. Johnson, and he's back here.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Question. Stop. Go.
I was waiting for you to ask if there was new business.
Well, I didn't show anything about the new business situation. Mr. Etter, do you know what this is?
No, I do not.
I can, it doesn't have to be on the record if you don't want it.
Well, we're adjourned at this
We're
point.
adjourned, go for it.
Okay.
Well, let's,
Want my motion back, or?
no, just, we can go ahead and adjourn. and
Yeah, it
we'll
doesn't
talk-
have to
we
be
can
on
talk
record.
later.
Okay, is everything off?
Yes.
So meeting's closed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.